everybody, Michael Davis here, and welcome to Bone2Pick. I am incredibly excited for our guest today. I had the great fortune of meeting him this spring and hearing him. It's an astoundingly great player. I consider him the preeminent trombone soloist in the world of classical music today. He hails from Bolzano, Italy. He studied in Austria and ultimately ended up getting his degree from the Juilliard School here in New York. That was in 2016. He has performed with numerous orchestras around the world, including the Vienna Philharmonic, the New York Philharmonic, Dallas Symphony, Munich Philharmonic, the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, just to name a few. He has released 6 critically acclaimed albums as a solo artist. He was a prize winner at the 2019 International Tchaikovsky Competition in Russia. He's currently on a 5-month U.S. tour. We were so fortunate to get him. He was up at NEC in Boston last night, and he's going to be at Juilliard tomorrow. His name is Peter Steiner. I'm sure many of you know who he is. I was so fortunate, as I mentioned, I got to meet him in the spring. Professor Mark Laskey at Penn State has this wonderful event called Frühling Posanen. And he was a guest, and I was a guest, and Bill Reichenbach was a guest. And I heard this gentleman play, and I was blown away. It's some of the best trombone playing I've ever heard in my life. And I just looked at Bill, and I said, because I didn't really know who Peter was yet, and I said, "Do you know who this guy is?" And Bill's like, "Oh yeah, we're all aware of him out in LA." So they got a jump on me, but we're, Peter, thanks so much for being here today, for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule and your tour to stop off and chat with us a bit about your illustrious career.
Well, thanks for having me. It's very humbling to be in these walls where all this magic happens.
Well, it's nice of you to say. Let's talk about growing up in Italy.
Yes.
I mean, how cool is that? Like we all, I know as Americans, we always fantasize about the European lifestyle, but you obviously had something going on in Italy, and what drew you to music and the trombone when you were growing up?
So I grew up in Bolzano, Italy. It's right in the Dolomites, in the middle of the mountains, so on the border to Austria, all the way north. So that's why, you know, my accent is more Germanic. I look much more Germanic than Italian. And there's a big cultural tradition, you know, that's about wind band music there. It's ingrained in the tradition of everybody there around. And so I grew up playing in wind ensembles all the time, in wind band. My family is full of musicians. My sisters both play instruments. My dad used to play the tuba. So we used to create a lot of noise in our household. And I was creating noise from the very beginning on. At the early age, I was always kind of playing around, especially percussionistic. And I wanted to become a drummer. That was really my go-to. But my mom said, no, we can't sing. No, we can't do that. So I went with the second loudest because there was... Back in the day, there was a bass trombonist in the wind band where my family played in, where my sisters and my dad played in. And he was just going all in all the time. And I really just fell in love with pedal notes being very loud and prominent. So that's really what drew me to playing the trombone. And then I was very fortunate to have a teacher at the age of 6 already that didn't force me to go to the recorder or to the piano or to take singing lessons. He immediately started me off with breathing exercises, mouthpiece buzzing, because obviously the trombone was not really at age 6 reachable. P-bones didn't really exist yet. So, but he saw that there was somebody that really wanted to create noise with this pipe here, I guess. And so I really had the fortune is that he was really always thinking and talking about basics, and that was always ingrained into me at a young age. And yes, then I just really always had fun creating music, playing with others in wind band. I guess they saw some talent at the early age. So when I was 9, I remember it was the first time that I could solo with the local wind ensemble, or maybe 9 or 10 or so.
Wow! And already the path as the soloist. That's awesome.
That was so much fun. I just remember walking out there. My sisters were there. My dad was there. It was just so much fun playing. And you know, as a kid, you don't really. There's no stage fright. You go out there and you just play. People look at you completely shocked, and it's just the biggest fun that you can have. So. yeah, I think there was a big passion all the time, and that just kind of helped getting through the harder times, because teenage years are not so, you kind of get a little bit drawn away from making music because there's other cooler things in life, a lot
Indeed.
of temptations, and but since it's so traditionally involved in the public life there, I think it was good for me that I just kept at it, and there was so many concerts that I played with the wind band and wind ensemble, brass band, and so that it was really, really fun growing up there, and just basically breathing and living music all the time. Milan is only 3 hours from there. They have very good opera there, good orchestra there.
Sure.
Verona is really close. Vienna is very close. Munich is only 3 hours. So all these major places, major cities with very big cultural impact, especially in music and arts, are so close by that there's very heavy influence in the region where I grew up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, what a great foundation and opportunities as a young person. And then you went to you studied your studies continued in Austria.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Since where I grew up is so close to Austria, it's just an hour drive, and then we are in Austria. I was looking at places where I could further study after I was done at the local conservatory. The one really cool thing about the European way of studying is that you can attend a conservatory during high school already. So like something like Juilliard, which is a conservatory, they offer pre-college, but that's just once a week. It's just a Saturday event. And you can do that technically in Europe, just your regular studies already during your high school. So I got my first bachelor's when I was 16, which was really, really cool. I was, I did trombone classes, I did trombone choir, theory, and a lot of those things at a very young age. And then my parents thought that it's very valuable that I first finish high school before really just going for trombone, which was a very good call, good guidance. And then I had 2 years that I had. I was 16 when I finished that degree, so I thought I have 2 more years in high school. I should refine my playing before I then hopefully go and study with Mr. Laskey, because that was always my goal, my dream, to be in New York one day and studying with him. So in the Munich Philharmonic, the principal trombonist, his name is Danny Bone2Pick. He teaches in Salzburg, which is 3 hours from my hometown.
Okay.
And by that time, my dad had retired already, so he was gracious enough to drive me there once a week or once every 2 weeks to have lessons and to do the theory classes and do all of that in one day, and then we drove right back home. So the last couple of years at high school were very already oriented on trombone and on skipping class as much as possible.
There you go.
So I got that time in Salzburg, and I really had an amazing time. He was really focused on basics, on scales. That was his thing, scales all the time. So that was crucial from 16 to age 18, 19. That was really, really helpful, and I had an awesome time with studying somebody of that, principal trombone of the Munich Philharmonic is a really prestigious job.
Sure, of course.
So he definitely knows his stuff, and that was really valuable. And then, as I said, my big dream was always.
Let's talk a little bit about Juilliard and what that was like. Of course, studying with the great Joe Laskey is always an inspiring thing for everybody. But tell me your experience.
So when I grew up, I remember one Christmas I got a gift from my sisters, which was the Illumination CD by Joe Laskey, where he plays the T-Bone Concerto and Bluebells of Scotland and some more pieces, and I was shocked. I remember I put it in on the Christmas day, and it just went on loop, the album. I almost wore the CD out, if that's possible, wearing a CD out. I couldn't believe that something was possible on the instrument of that beauty. Yeah. And then it was always kind of a dream to one day hopefully meet that person. Then the Juilliard audition happened, and luckily I got in. There were so many people auditioning, and I have no idea why and how I got in, but
I'm pretty sure I know why, but we'll discuss that.
But yes, it was very, very.
So did you come to New York to audition, or was there? Okay.
Yes, I came here with my parents actually. It was their first time coming to the US. It was my second time, because I came one time before just to check out everything and have a lesson with Mr. Laskey before the audition. And then we basically came over for a week of vacation. We did all the tourist things for a week, and then there was this one day, I remember it was a Wednesday, where I just escaped for a couple hours, and I went to take the audition at Juilliard, and then I came back to them, and yeah, they waited outside the building, and then we just went back to being tourists.
Wow.
So, there was not a whole lot of pressure on making it happen. It was just a dream, and I thought I would give it a shot, and then it worked out.
Wow, that's great. So how many years were you studying at Juilliard?
What do you mean?
Did you get your bachelor's degree there, master's degree?
At Juilliard, I did an undergrad degree.
Undergrad degree,
I wanted to start one more time fresh, and I wanted to get the full 4-year experience with Joe.
Yeah.
Because I thought, if I could have technically continued as a master's because I got the bachelor's already in Europe.
Right.
But I wanted to get the full experience. I wanted to have 4 years of training.
Yeah, awesome. One of the things that fascinated me looking at your bio is your time in the Vienna Philharmonic. So I think you were 23 and you got the appointment for your position with Vienna Philharmonic. Is that concurrent with Vienna State Opera? It was the same. What was that like? And did that follow, I guess, right after Juilliard?
Yeah, that was also very shocking. There were a lot of shocking events during those times, just one after the other. First, I did 2 years of studies with Joe. And then I remember it was the penultimate school day of my sophomore year. There was an audition at the Colorado Symphony, and I got awarded a 1-year contract as principal trombonist. So I was 21 years old, which was really, really shocking too. So I had to end my studies actually after these 2 years. I moved to Colorado, played 1 year there, and then decided to move back because I wanted to really refine my playing even more.
Wow, okay.
So then I did my 3rd year at Juilliard, where all my friends were in their 4th year, which kind of felt a little bit weird. And then in the middle of that 3rd year, the audition for the Vienna Philharmonic happened. The Vienna Philharmonic is / the Vienna State Opera.
Oh, okay.
Your main employee is the Vienna State Opera. The Vienna Philharmonic is kind of their side hustle, if you want to call it that way.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So they're a combined orchestra, if you want to look at it, basically like the Met and the New York Philharmonic combined.
Coming into one.
So they play orchestra every night, and then on top of that they have some Philharmonic concerts.
Wow, okay.
So there's a lot of people hired in that entire group, so there's a lot of constant rotation, multiple sections hired. It's a big group. So that happened during my 3rd year at Juilliard, and then I just got a diploma. That's when I finished my time at Juilliard. I didn't really get the undergrad degree, but they gave me a diploma.
Okay.
And then I moved to Vienna, which was just mind-blowing. At such a young age, sharing the stage with musicians of that caliber was every day goosebumps in every rehearsal, in concerts. I had to pinch myself very, very often. Just, it was a dream come true.
I bet, yeah.
It was really.
Yeah.
And traveling the world with that ensemble, I went on an Asia tour. Europe tours are not even like on radar because you're constantly on tour with them. It's just
interesting. Okay.
It was really, really an awesome experience, and something I really, really, really look back at, and I'm so happy that I got to experience that and do that. And I think that really influences a lot of decisions that I do these days. A lot of things that I saw then. I met so many great conductors, soloists. I saw the best of the best on a daily basis at such a young age.
Sure.
And as a trombonist, you have a lot of time to analyze them. You sit there and you look at them and you try to figure out what makes them so special, what makes them stand out, what makes them survive these really big pressure situations in a way that is just so artistic and so easy looking. But it's not easy, they work really hard. So you have a lot of time to analyze all these people walking in and out on a daily basis. On the opera as well, you hear those singers every day on the top of their career singing these arias in the most beautiful way, and an audience of 2,000 people losing their mind because it's so beautiful. So you are in an environment that is, it's really, really special.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, you kind of touched exactly in the direction I want to go. One of the things that I find, and we're going to talk about this at great length, but first of all, it's unbelievably hard to become a trombone soloist, especially in the classical world, and to sustain yourself as a solo artist. It's remarkable that what you've accomplished already, and you're still a very young man. Maybe talk about your, and you just touched on it a little bit, but your development and your desire to become a soloist. Because I think when we spoke at Penn State, I asked, did you consider just staying in the Vienna Philharmonic, even though I know it was a year position, but I'm sure you would have been in line for a full-time position if you wanted to stay. And you were, if I not to put words in your mouth, but I think you said no. I really was thinking along these other lines. But so, what was that like at the beginning when you decided, okay, I'm going to go for this impossible gold ring over here in the solo world?
It was definitely very, very challenging in the very beginning to wrap my mind around it, and also to wrap other people's mind around it. I convinced other people that this is something that could be done, and is something that you could financially make happen, but also sustain musically, and all of these different artistic perspectives that come into this are very, very challenging. And it hasn't really been done before, except I would say Mr. Christian Lindbergh, who has been really paving a way for that solo trombone as an instrument. They have followed multiple more after that: Alain Trudel, Michel Piquet, Joe Alessi, Jürgen van der Rijn, Ian. But there's so many more that came after Christian. But I think Christian was the only full-time soloist that lived from being a soloist and didn't teach aside or didn't play in an orchestra. And that was the main job. The main job was being a soloist. So it was something that I had a very hard time wrapping my mind around. But it was always a dream of mine. It was always a desire of mine. As I said earlier, as in the young age, I got the chance to kind of experience it as a soloist in front of just, even if it's just a local wind band, it really matters to you when you're in that moment. So that special spotlight, I really, really always enjoyed. There was something about it that I desire, I guess. And when I decided to study then with Joe, the focus shifted towards orchestral playing, simply because that's what he mostly teaches. He discusses with you what you want to achieve, and of course your answer is, I want to become an orchestral player at that point. At least for me, that was the answer, because I didn't see that possibility. I always thought, okay, it's cool to dream of being a soloist, but this will never happen anyways. So go the route that everybody else is doing, and then try to make it in that way, because that way is already such a hard way. And then I remember my first lesson, I had the Gröndal on the stand. So I wanted to learn a solo. And that was my goal with Joe. But no, we went to Arbans, we went to Bordonis, we went to fundamentals immediately. We didn't touch the Gröndal. And so it has always been part of me, I guess. Melodies especially are something that I love. I love any type of music, radio when I switch it on, or when I go to the opera or the symphony or whatever, rock, whatever I hear, whatever music, if there's a melody that I can hang on to, that I can whistle afterwards, that I can sing all day, earworms, I really love. Just the fact that there is something that catches your attention and does not go away, it's such a cool fact of something. When you eat food, the smell or the taste is kind of gone after half an hour, You mostly just feel it down there, but that was something very, very special.
When I heard you in the spring, your facility just blew my mind. Your technique was, I don't think I've ever heard the trombone at that level. Perhaps Marshall jokes, but other than that, you two are on a special planet that you guys are on. But anyway, you just touched on the Arbans factor, and I remember asking you how did you develop this level of technique? And I said, did you get this all from Joe? And you said, well, you got a lot from Joe, but basically you said, if my memory serves me correctly, it was you just Arbans all day long, it just completely. And would you say that that's
Absolutely.
The main thing that helped get? For those of you who don't, go get one of his CDs today, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, because the technique is it's mind blowing. But anyway, tell us about how you approach that, and because we all play Arbans as brass players, but not with that level of result.
I think, to be honest, I think the only world that doesn't play the arbands the way they are supposed to be are the trombonists. Because if you listen to trumpet players play the arbands, they go really crazy at them. If you listen to tuba players or horn players or euphonium players, they do some crazy stuff with the arbands. And I feel like we trombonists have kind of been a little bit behind on that. We have kind of kept it to the quarter notes and half note, kind of stayed in that realm and really analyzed that really well. And I think that's a really important solid foundation that we need. You need to have that really comfortable feeling on just executing this, let's call them easy techniques, half notes, quarter notes. It's very, very hard to make quarter notes consistent and exactly the way you want them. But I think that's a solid foundation that you need to have in order to then evolve, hopefully, your technique to a different level. For me, the most logical step when deciding to be a soloist was that I have to elevate my technique. Because when I listen to other soloists of other instruments, violin, piano, cello, the soloists are the ones that stick out. Those are the ones that have the best abilities on the instrument. That's the reason why they are soloists. So I thought I have to elevate my technique, and that's a constant endeavor. I'm fighting on it every day. I try to make the technique better and to just kind of keep polishing and keep refining and keep elevating it, hopefully. But I think that was a really big chunk of my practice went into that thought. Okay, I really need to push what I think is possible on the instrument, because as you say, there's other people, and I think there's a couple people that are, to me, were very shocking when I heard it, like Jim Markey, for example. I saw some recordings and I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Or same with Marshall Gilks, you hear, or Joe, sometimes you hear things and you're just like, this is something I heard for the first time being done on this instrument. I was used to it on a violin, but wow, this is really, I thought it's just bop, 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 bop. That was the initial thought. But there's so much more that we can actually do, that so many people have pushed for doing that. I think that was one of my main goals. I put a lot of time in it. I still put a lot of time in it. Arbands and scales, arpeggios, these fundamental aspects, finding the fun and love in them and polishing them to the fullest. When I sit down and I have time to practice, I sit down and practice scales. That's my go-to. I start and I just stay in one key and I go first one octave, establish a comfortable feeling. Then I start to add the second octave. Then I go all glissando. Then just in all different crazy ways you can imagine them. I think it's very oftentimes we stay as brass players, as trombonists mainly, we stay in such boxes mentally. Try to imagine what else is possible. Listen to other instrumentalists practice. I listen a lot to, I go on YouTube and I just check out how different soloists, for example, violinists practice. Because there's this great age of all this video content out there. You can learn from all of these different instrumentalists just by going on YouTube. And when you see how they practice those Paganini capriccios over and over and over, of course they have the technique then. We never really push our instrument to those limits. The limits for us trombonists is art or prior when it comes to classical trombone playing, I would say, and that's the extent that we go to. And Bluebells of Scotland is fun, but there's much more out there. If you just playing just a Bach cello suite is already so technically challenging, and we I think we trombonists, we just always stick to other things. I would say we have. So I think that was a big part of my practice, is to refine my technique and also be open for what is possible, because I know there's no limits. I think we can keep pushing them and keep exploring what is possible.
That's a great way to look at it, and you've obviously pushed the envelope of trombone technique to a whole other level, so listeners are going to be looking at the trombone differently because of you. It reminds me of a story that Frank Rossellino, the great Frank Rossellino, told when he was a kid growing up. They said, how did you figure out how to tongue that fast? And he said his sister was a violin player, and she'd be practicing in the room next to him, and he would just mimic it on the trombone.
Exactly, yeah.
And kind of a similar mental approach that you're taking is that, wow, I'm hearing this from other soloists. This is what makes them such great soloists. This is what I have to do on my instrument to make that translate. beautiful stuff. Let's talk about your solo records. I know I had it wrong. I thought it was 4, but it's 6. 6 solo projects, which is already, and you're a very young guy, so like lots to come for sure on that front. But tell us about some of them, and what's maybe your latest one, your first one, and your work with Constance, and just
So recording albums has always been also, again, a dream of mine. I grew up with a lot of dreams. I always kind of dream big. I don't know why. That is kind of implanted in me, I guess. And I grew up listening to Joe Alessi's CD, and I don't know, there's 30 of them. Then once I wore all of those out, I went to all the Christian Lindbergh CDs, and there's, I don't know, 50 of them. So there were these 2 gentlemen that were just producing so much content over those, years. But for me, it was all compact, because when I started to think more the trombone route, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna get my hands on all of these recordings. So it was like an instant moment where I had like 100 new CDs that I basically, I don't know how I got them back in the day, but it was like, okay, these 2 gentlemen have created something. Maybe that's possible also for me one day. Maybe just one CD with my face on the cover, that would be something that I can't think of, but maybe it's possible. There was always just a little dream of things like that. So then, when I graduated from Juilliard and the Vienna State Opera, Vienna Philharmonic thing was happening, I just thought, now might be the right time to just do my debut CD. And I recorded it with friends that I was having a great time during that time and collaborating during that time with. So it was a project of heart, basically, and just kind of the first stamp of, this is a project that I have created, I've organized everything, it's just my first project, really, which was really fun. And then I met Constanze, and from there on it just kind of evolved into a crazy journey. We seem to release an album every year since we have met, and we already have kind of a plan for the next, 5, 6, 7 CDs in our head already, which is just crazy. But I guess we have found each other in our crazy ways together. And so the first CD Constance and I did was a program that we performed on our first world tour together. That CD is entitled Sapphire. Then we have created some very cool projects now during the pandemic, especially. I'm very lucky Constance is also an organist, so I can use her in that way as well. We have an album that's called Binary Star. That's all orchestral literature that was arranged for the 2 of us. So it's a very personalized project, all music written for us. We put a lot of heart into that project. We did a lot of work on that ourselves. And then during the pandemic we learned how to edit.
Good for you.
We video editing, audio editing, we really tried to get the best out of the time that was given to us by the pandemic. And then we produced 2 more albums now during the pandemic. One is a Christmas album entitled The First Noel, and then the last release of Constance and I together is the current program that we are traveling the world with. It's entitled 2022. We thought that's a fitting title for hopefully this new start. And then I also released recently an album together with the Szeged Trombone Ensemble from Hungary. So yes, it's really fun. I enjoy recording. There's something to it that is really super challenging, because you set your goals so high, and it's like you work towards it. And I feel like always in that preparation, in that work towards something, you learn so much and you push yourself to limits that you didn't know before existed. So I always love to set myself goals like these, like albums, releases. Also learning the editing process, which was a big goal. And we edited an entire CD, the entire project, the entire album 2022 was realized by the 2 of us.
That's awesome.
That's so cool to think of. And there's so much more to come.
I have no doubt. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the tour that you're on right now, which for those of you go to Peter's website and check it out. It's pretty impressive what you're putting together just on this tour alone. I mean, this is the many more to come, of course. But talk a little bit maybe about the logistics of putting it together, because I'm sure just like it is in the jazz world, all the great jazz trombonists that we talked about, Marshall and Michael Deese and Ryan Keverly and all these great young players, you know, when they go out to do a tour, they're hustling like madmen to try to get the dates booked, get hotels, deal with airfares, doing everything. And correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of manage everything yourselves between you and
Constantly.
Talk a little bit about what that's like, because that's a whole nother hat that you're wearing in addition to the virtuosic level playing. Now you've got to be a business minded and an entrepreneur and all those things.
Yes, that's a very difficult and especially tricky part of the entire business, because you would wish for somebody to do that for you, because that would just you could just focus on what you're good at.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to learn so many new things. It's kind of a learning by doing, but it's a lot of email work. You know, you have to reach out to a lot of people in order to get gigs. There's nobody waiting around for a trombone and organ or trombone and piano performance. So you have to reach out to a lot of people. You have to be good at networking. You have to be always, you know, communicating with everybody that you meet, and socialize all the time. Try to get to know everybody in the community, and you know, first of all, be a good human being, so that they hopefully hire you. So if they have a good time talking to you, they hopefully will hire you to play for their students, or to play a recital at a venue that they know, or to solo with their orchestra, whatever the circumstances. So there's so many things that go into getting a gig to start with. But mostly it's email work. If I would say we send out 100 emails, we get about 3 to 7 or 8 responses. Then there is another wave 2 weeks later of emails sending out to the remainder of those that didn't respond. And then, you know, it's just a constant circle of emails that you have to go through to remind people that you sent them an email. And also you constantly have to find new engagements, new hosts, new chamber halls, new universities, new ensembles that you haven't collaborated with, or that you haven't thought of contacting yet, because not everybody that you contact with is going to jump on it. So you have to put out your feelers as much as possible, which is a big part of the job, I would say, to get these gigs. That's the initial thing, that you have to get these confirmations. Then the next step, which is really tricky, is kind of making those confirmations line up in a way that it makes sense logistically. Usually when we tour, we try to make that happen geographically. You know, US tour, Asia tour, Spain and Portugal tour, Benelux states tour, you know, Scandinavia tour. We always try to make it geographically a working tour, so you don't just jump all around the world.
I was super impressed at how you did it. You nailed it on this one. You know, just like you were in Philadelphia, then you go up to Boston, back to New York, like perfect. You know?
It's a work in progress, and we learn by doing. And this is not the first tour, thank God. And the first one did not look like this at all. That was Cleveland, then there was LA, and then there was Dallas, sometimes happening day after day. So it's definitely there's a learning curve happening. But it's, you know, it's super tricky to make that lineup, then that the dates kind of make sense geographically. And then the next thing happens, which is booking flights, booking hotels, booking rental cars. Because you can't always, you know, rental cars is very, very crucial, because you can't always expect the hosts to help you get from point A to B, and then from point B to C. Well, how do you get there? So rental cars all around the world, which is super fun. Hotels, which is a bit easier to find hotels, but you know, sometimes you always have to find the hotels the closest by. You don't want to waste too much of your time. Flights have been becoming very, very tricky to book, super expensive, and a lot of connections got cancelled during the pandemic, so that's a big portion. So there's so many hours and hours that during a day go into thinking of all the logistics of a tour like this. And then, you know, that planning happens usually about a year before the actual event. So right now, I'm thinking about 2024.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
So everything before that, 2003, is pretty much fully booked in engagements, and hotel-wise, flight-wise, most of it is kind of the rough part is figured out. So now is already the planning of almost 2 years in advance. So you kind of get into the groove, and of course in the beginning it wasn't that way. We were just planning 2 weeks in advance, and But now the pandemic has also helped that we kind of booked way in advance, because we had this big tour about to happen, which currently we're on a four-month tour throughout the US, which is mind-blowing.
Wow, it really is.
It's to us as well. And after that we continue.
Yeah.
We go to Europe, we go to Asia, and then we come right back to the US. So
Yeah. Well, it's really impressive, and congrats to you guys for to making it work and making it work so efficiently. You know, it's a big part of a tour being successful is like not running yourself ragged just logistically.
Yes.
You know, all that kind of stuff. I know you're an artist with Con Selmer, and I know, I can't remember the gentleman's name that we saw that was with you at Penn
Jason
State.
Smith, yeah.
Yeah, yes, of course. And I would imagine you get some support from them and some help from them. We're going to talk about your signature trombone in a minute, but I would imagine that relationship is helpful
that
in terms of
certainly
the
helps,
touring.
of course. And they have special dealers where they have a lot of trombones there, where they can create events or they can host us for concerts in order to sell more trombones at that store. There's other collaborations, like for example with Sweetwater Sound. I've created some content with. So yes, there's definitely some extra revenue from that side as well. So that's definitely helpful.
Yeah, cool. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your signature horn and the development of that and how that's going?
Another dream. So we just seem to go from dream to dream here. I always admired and really respected two really big brands, Con and Bach. Every trombonist always talks about them. When you're growing up, you either have a Con or you have a Bach, and you look at your chair next to you and you're like, oh, what trombone do you have? And then you look at the other one, and those two brands always seem to kind of be the recurring brands. And I was always a Bach. I played 42. That was my first instrument, as probably many of the listeners here.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I went through a lot of different Bach instruments over the time as a student. I also tried out a lot of other different brands. I pretty much went through all the brands as a student, which I think was very good, because I kind of know now what's on the market. And I know how every brand is different from each other. And then when this opportunity came up to help them develop the artisan line of the Bach trombones, and then to create this signature model, the A47 XPS, I had to jump on it. I couldn't.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just a dream come true, and I thought that all the stuff that I went through during my studies, all the instruments that I went through as a kid, as a teenager, all of that knowledge of how the different instruments have to be played, I thought I could put all of that into this instrument. So all of the flaws or the problems that I noticed, I tried to eliminate here. Of course, you always face new issues. That's just the way of an artist. And as a musician, I think you always try to analyze and find out whatever you can improve. But that was just a dream come true, to create something with them. And to create something with them is not, create is probably the wrong word, because I didn't create anything. Bach had all the knowledge. The company, they have built trombones for years and for centuries in a really, really amazing way. So what I basically did is I asked them to give me the opportunity to try out everything they have, and then I can pick and combine the way I think it works best for me and also other players. So I wasn't inventing anything, I wasn't creating anything, I just took what was available and made that fit for me, and also build an instrument that hopefully others also enjoy, and that it helps them just create their sound, create their voice, and enjoy their playing and have fun with it. So that was really, really a fun project. And is a fun project.
If I can ask you a specific question, the X that is made up from the F attachment there, what is that? What did that do? It's intriguing because I don't think I've ever seen an F attachment with that particular detail in it.
Yeah. There's been a lot of different development, I think, with F attachment reps.
Yeah.
There's a couple others that have similar, like Chagall and Adams. They have similar designs. I know Shires has their own designs. We all have kind of tried to figure out a way to make it feel the best possible, I guess, for ourselves. And Bach has two, main sections of valve design. One is the large one, the open rep, which is kind of very extended, and I always felt like the instrument was very extended. It felt like I was never able to control it and kind of just be in charge of things. And then they have the other one, which is super compact, which is the traditional trombone they have, which many people start on. And I always, with that one, I always felt very comfortable, but I always felt like I couldn't bring that one far out enough. I couldn't extend that one far out. That one always felt a little bit too compact. So I tried to kind of combine these two ideas of extending and compact and create a middle ground of those, and combine the features of both ways. That was the main idea behind the X-Rap. Then another big step, I think, for Bach was the introduction of the screw bells. Because Bach has been known to be a one-piece bell. It is still a one-piece bell, but then after they make it a one-piece bell, they cut it and they put the screw on. So that was a really big change. But I think
what do you find? What does that do for you? Like, what is the qualities that come out of having the screw bell?
I find that with the screw bell, you definitely can't just take any trombone that you're having right now and cut it and put a screw bell on, because that's going to throw off the weight ratio of the entire instrument. You know, instruments, they get balanced out in a way that they feel good. You certainly know that you have done a lot of instrument development, and there's a lot of thought that goes into how to balance the instrument correctly. So we did a lot of experimenting how not to throw off the entire, beauty of a Bach trombone by adding this extra weight here. So we did a lot of experimenting where we can take some of the weight out and balance it out quite correctly. So we have a lightweight bell here. And what I find with the screw bell is that I have a certain resistance point that I can always lean against on. When I don't play a screw bell trombone, I always feel like I'm pushing, I'm blowing constantly, and my thought is always blow, 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 and I never get a feeling of how far am I blowing? Am I overblowing? I'm having a hard time to get a grasp of the sound concept. When I have the screw on, I can lean against it and I immediately know, okay, this is how far I have to go. I don't need to go further. And sometimes, that's just a certain resistance, a certain way that I feel in every screw bell instrument. It's the same for a Tyne or for a Shires or Courtois. They also make screw bells. I find that when their instrument has that screw bell and it's balanced right, it gives me at least a certain more comfort in knowing where the notes are, in leaning against something, because you feel very often quite lonely. You have to play something very challenging to you at that moment, whether it's soft, whether it's high or even low, whatever it is, it's challenging. So it's much more comfortable to have an instrument that helps you and to supports you. So I find with that leaning process that I can lean against I have a buddy with me on stage that helps me make my job a bit easier.
Interesting. Yeah, great.
Plus, it makes my traveling much easier.
Yeah, right.
So it allows for a compact case that I've designed together with the Guardbags company, and I can fit that trombone case in every overhead bin.
Great.
They ask me if I'm a violinist, so that's also
perfect.
That's perfect. And if they ever give me trouble, I can just unzip the slide and fit it underneath the chair that you're sitting in. So traveling is really easy now.
That's
with
great.
That case.
Yeah.
Because I hate to, when you travel, I hate to put my trombone out of sight.
Oh, of course.
You want to have it with you, and
no, it's not.
You want to be as careful as possible because you depend on the instrument as well. So
that's never the answer, to let the airlines take your instrument. No. That's not going to work. Well, that's a great description and overview of the horn. It's obviously working extremely well for you. So that's very cool. As we wind down here, this has been so awesome to talk to you and just pick your brain and hear your thoughts, and you bring so much creativity and passion to the music and to your playing, and it's nice to just hear from you directly about how you've approached things and developed things. It's really amazing. You touched on what next year looks like and that you're planning for 2024. What's the long-term look like for you? Say we look at Peter Steiner 10 years down the road. What do you have a vision for that? Or are you going to let see where the chips fall and go in whatever direction? Or how do you look at it?
Well, first of all, I feel very, very flattered that you say these words, and that because I have to say that I grew up listening to and watching all of this, so that's why it feels so humbling. As I told you before, I should also probably tell the listeners. My freshman year at Juilliard, I was so overwhelmed with all the names of brass players that were dropped around me because I was not familiar with them. I grew up in Europe, so it was a complete new territory. And I jumped on your YouTube channel and I saw these videos, and I remember the dorms nights where I just went through all the videos, video after video, Phil Smith, Phil Myers, Joe Alessi, Bill Reichenbach. I just went through all of them, and so all of the stuff that you're hearing today is basically just what I learned from all of these. So I really, really feel humbled to be here and that you say these words. Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. No, it's equally humbling to hear you say that. So we appreciate it very much.
So I don't know. I really don't know where the road is gonna go. I'm really having a lot of fun with this. I'm having a lot of fun experimenting and seeing what is possible for me, what's possible on instrument, what are things that haven't been done, what are things that I think are cool that people have not looked at in a way that they think that they're cool. So a lot of experimenting, you know, like a Christmas album is not something that trombonists usually do.
Mm-hmm.
But together with Constanze, I just thought, you know, it's just something we should do. We both enjoy Christmas music. We like to listen to Christmas music during the Christmas time. So why not create a Christmas album? You know, I know there's a couple out there, but it's not something that is often done. So things like that, I think, are going to come more often. I think we want to tap into more general audiences. We have been playing widely for trombonists around the world and brass players, which is super fun. I enjoy meeting all of these great players all around the world, and also these young generations, connecting with them and hopefully giving something to them that's inspiring them. It's super fun, but it's a dream of mine is also to touch general audiences, to just touch a regular person and be like, oh, trombone can sound cool. It's not just in marching band in the last row, or it's at the football field, the super loud thing happening, but it also can be something that people, you know, hear in the radio and they not immediately go to the next channel. So, you know, we have a performance coming up in a public library, which is such a different environment than a university. The people there, they sit differently, they enjoy differently, they relax differently than a student. They are completely there for different reasons. So touching some of those people, I think, is definitely a goal of mine and Constanze, to play more in regular chamber music halls, play at chamber music series, perform more in with symphony orchestras, with ensembles all around. We have a couple cool double concerti that are being written or have been written for the two of us. So Constanze and me plus orchestra or plus wind band. There's also so much cool repertoire for trombone together with an ensemble, with wind band, orchestra. So I'll definitely try to tap more into that. More CDs, definitely. And just simply, I think, much more fun projects. You know, just kind of realizing my dream, fulfilling many more dreams, I guess. There's many more dreams coming up in all of this, and I just really, really have fun with all of this. I have no idea where it's going.
Well, it's we all can't wait to watch, and we're living vicariously through you as you're the trombone soloist. So we're going to say, wow, I could have done that. But you're doing it, so it's awesome. So continued success, and we can't wait to see what's next. Everybody can go to your website, probably keep in touch with everything. PeterSteiner.com.
Yes, SteinerPeter.com.
SteinerPeter.com.
Peter Steiner was taken, so we had to go the other way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it was the other way around. That's cool. That's cool.
And then all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
They can reach me, and if they have any questions, reach out to me.
One last question, and I was so impressed when we did the talk for Professor Laskey at Penn State and yourself and Constanze and Bill Reichenbach and I, the four of us were on a panel together, and you had such a great, which you do all just in general, you have such a great energy about you, but your way of able to inspire and translate what you've accomplished to the students, to giving them a way of, you know, it's possible. I use that all the time myself. And you know, when you're dealing with any kind of playing, it's like you have to ask yourself, is it possible? And if you've done it once, then it's possible. You may not do it every time out. But at any rate, I found it really inspiring how you were able to translate that and impart that on the students. So I'll ask you one long way around to getting to the question. If you were, and you're going to be giving a masterclass at Juilliard, so if you're seeing these outstanding young students like you are all at NEC or Curtis or wherever, what advice do you give them in terms of just, it's you know, highly unlikely there's going to be too many Peter Steiners out there, but as they look at you and to see the amazing accomplishments you've had, what do you tell them to say?
Well, hopefully there's going to be many more of me out there. Not of me, but of people that do what I'm doing, because we need more. We need more trombonists, and there is more. There's so many. Jürgen is so active right now.
Sure.
Peter Moore. There's so many, and it's Chris Garfield. The list is endless. There's coming. They're popping out like mushrooms, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that there's more competition. That it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Many more people doing what I'm doing is a good thing. So I think that will just help elevate the entire community, the entire business of trombone playing. I think it will elevate that. What I tell them is mostly have fun with what you do. I think that is the most important thing in life. Life is too short to do things that you don't enjoy. Yes, obviously you're going to have times where you're not going to enjoy every minute of touching this instrument. Yes, it's the same with the relationship. It goes with ups and downs. But in general, I think you need to love doing what you're doing to have a fulfilled life. And then when you love what you're doing, you're going to invest a lot of time because it matters to you, and then you will end up being good. No matter what you do, you will end up being good in what you desire doing. If you want to become a very good teacher, if you invest a lot of time, you will become a good teacher. If you want to become good at being whatever you want to do, really follow your passions. I think that's the most important thing. Very oftentimes in my studies, I saw colleagues of mine that I don't know why they picked up the instrument in the first place. Maybe they were guided by their parents or forced or whatever it was, the circumstance that they picked up an instrument. I didn't see the love in them, in their connection with the instrument, and then that translated to their practice routine, that translated to their entire attitude to making music. It didn't mean so much to them. To me, it has always been a hobby, always a dream, and always my passion. So I obviously care really a lot about it, and I care about how I sound, I care about my posture when I play, I care about all these things. So I think it's really important that you love what you're doing. If you don't love it, if you don't love trombone, go do something else that you really love doing,
Yeah, sure.
I think we don't need more trombonists that don't love doing it, that are just doing it for the wrong reasons. So I think that's really, really crucial, that you really ask yourself, what do I enjoy most doing? Except maybe not doing anything, because it's also really fun not just to hang out and chill and relax and spend time with friends and family. That's a really, really fun distraction. But find out what your purpose, your goal, your passion is. I think that's very, very crucial, and that will then help you. Because trust me, believe me, there's many moments where the career feels like it's going up and down, and then performances don't go as well as you want them to. So there's a lot of ups and downs. You can't always give up when it just goes a bit down, because there's always the passion that will bring back the love for it and will open your eyes again why you're doing it. So I think that's really, really crucial. When you look at so many of the most successful people in the industries, they really love what they're doing. I think Joe really loves what he's doing.
Without
that's
question.
Why he's putting in all this time, and it's making him happy, and that's why he's the greatest. So I think that's really, really important that you love what you're doing. I think I really I saw that from Joe as a big inspiration always. And I think then when you find what you love doing, you have to really establish a work ethic. Joe really always works so hard, and I work really hard on all of this. The entire business aspect of all of this is hard work. So you need to get to grinding, you need to get to work. Things don't just come at you. That's not how the world runs anymore. So find what you love doing, and then get to grinding. And find the fun and love in that grinding, because it's fun. There's so much fun in the practicing. I think that is really, really crucial.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's great advice, and the inspiration that you got from Joe, you're giving to the next generation right now. So we sure appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed today as much as I did. It's just so wonderful to get a chance to talk to this amazing artist. And check Peter out at steinerpeter.com. He is going to be doing a Hip-BoneU lesson, so definitely check that out and hear this just remarkable instrumentalist. It's really incredible what he's playing and accomplished in all the aspects of his career. Peter, thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Appreciate
coming
it.
today, and best
Super
of luck
fun.
with the rest of the tour. And we will see all of you next time on Bone to Pick.